I'm trying to make a video trying to explain what Americans are afraid of. It's hard to really make this video because um, I cannot just explain this without hard evidence. So we'll have to look at a little bit of the history of this country. So, however, we do not need to memorize the whole set of details. That would probably get you an A in a college, U.S. history class. We don't need that kind of information. So, what we need is to understand the immigrants that went to New York in, there's like an island or something where they had to get processed and stuff like that. Forgot the name. So, basically, we have to understand a little bit of that. So, these folks that immigrated from Europe to the United States around 1800s, right? Of course, many of them have immigrated in other states, and this is before the invention of the airport. So, for the most part, there are some differences in the mentality of these type of immigrants. Sadly, I'm kind of making this video on a whims because I did not study U.S. history in college. So, my knowledge was not very adequate. However, let's try to understand, the types of people the immigrants that, for the most part, did not fully stay, that they may have returned to their home countries. We have to understand that demographic, which is not very well understood because the media doesn't. There's a reason why the media doesn't have these types. It's because it's not. I mean, it's not a crime story. It's not. It's not. It's just not. They have like a bunch of checklists on what type of stories they have to cover, and that's just not in those checklists. So we'll have to investigate um, a different way. So, now, uh, let's see. Like, think of it this way. Because there's like a lot of things in the media, right? We could use a specific example. However, it's like we had this huge pile of toys, and they're all different toys, right? You only pick a handful of them, and then what? You're gonna throw the rest of them away? You know, it's not very. That's the problem sometimes if we were to incorporate just one of those fictional franchises. So we can't. However, there's the problem in the other extreme. We're trying to make this very generic description that so we have to have a middle ground, right? So how could we describe the fears of this country? What is this country really afraid of? Um the way I see it, um um that would be kind of difficult. Let's just say, just imagine I was younger, right? I went to school like everyone. However, what if I happen to enter in one of these language immersion classes, where basically you would learn a foreign language with a teacher that only speaks that language, maybe only speaking English very rarely. Uh, like if uh, there's like a lockdown drill or something like that, maybe they would have to speak English. So, for the most part, that's not necessary, right? So, I have to think of other what if scenarios. Like, what if in one of the summers, childhood, I had to. What if I entered after summer program that so that is the type of person that gets arrested in this country. Right? If that type of person was in charge of the school, right? So I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't described any in my biography. So, what type of person is this? The type of person who gets arrested in this country? Let's try to give an example. Because the type of person that gets arrested in, say, Canada or United Kingdom, England, it's not the same. Type of person who gets arrested in this country, it tends to be someone who, like, how did I understand? Let's say when I was a high school student, they probably would have thought that my academic skills could be improved. And I'm like, there are ways to improve academic skills that are a little extreme for most Americans. And we're not just talking about the cram schools in Korea or Japan. No, 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 no. We're talking about different kind of academic extremism, which is basically like I described with the language immersion, right? Like you're learning a language with the teacher that only speaks that language, right? So it's like you would have to basically when you read the dictionary, there's like each word. Sometimes some dictionaries they have like um, how to pronounce that word, right? You have to basically write what you hear, but that with that type of you know what I mean. That's not easy. Um, so of course, the instructor has the ability to write, make these projections. So they would just write these words in these languages, and obviously you take notes, and then we have the internet. We can learn what that word is, and of course, in case of power outage, we have the textbook, right? So um, eventually just eventually figure it out, right? Without direct instruction. I'm not aware of a poverty, low income school environment that has that type of teaching in other subjects. Because that's kind of, because you can clearly see that's a little extreme for teaching foreign language, right? However, you can teach that way in other subjects. And that is the type of person that this country is afraid of. And I think I understand because, this type of, it can get the results, and anyone, regardless of, can, become college prepared, right? But what type of person is afraid of this? And we all know that this type of person is afraid of this tends to be the Delta Quadrant. Delta Quadra consists of folks that use extrovert thinking, introvert feeling, extrovert intuition, and introvert sensing. However, it's not always that way, right? So, um, you know, however, I mean, wait a minute. Like when people think of this type of person who gets arrested, they think of they did like a lot of people don't really get to understand them fully, right? And it's just like it's because you have to be able to create a template out of something, but out of what? What subject is this? What is the name of the subject, right? So, but we can extend the idea of like, can you extend that example of teaching foreign language by immersion? Because, because it's like, what are the advantages of learning that way? I don't know, like, because if you're learning a language with the teacher that only speaks that language, it would be difficult to communicate, right? Just imagine like if you were fighting in a war and you're in a different country, and then somehow for whatever reason you lose the battle and you're in these concentration camps. They don't speak their language, your language. That's not the, it's like I realize that most people in these classes would never get into that situations. However, um, it's to say that you can learn a subject like that without having to, stay past midnight for these cram schools. We don't. There are ways to learn a subject. So now, obviously, now some people would actually prefer to cram school over this uh, immersion technique, right? Others would prefer the immersion technique because they can't just stay after school, to midnight for these cram schools. So there's a little bit of